Okay, now, let's now move on to the next speaker.
So I don't know, Marisa, we can say wow now. It is an expression we can use for it. But, well, thank you very much for being here today on a sunny day in Badajoz. Somebody told me that it never rains in Badajoz, and we have seen that. But it's okay. Well, Marisa, you have set the bar very high, but I will try to do my bit from a different perspective, from a very practical perspective. I'm not going to talk about any research, so the expert is here. I'm more a teacher in the classroom. So the title of my talk is going to be CLIL and ELT Bridging the Gap. So we have seen all the wonderful things Marisa has said about CLIL and how well it works. But what happens with the students who are not in bilingual programs? How many of you are working in a bilingual school? Hands up. And how many of you are foreign language teachers? Good. So the title is Bridging the Gap, and I'll try to show you how we can bridge the gap between CLIL and teaching a foreign language. And I will show you some practical examples. So my intervention will focus on these points: foreign languages and Spanish curriculum, CLIL versus foreign languages, how to bridge the gap, and especially how we can do it. Well, if you think about the Spanish curriculum, throughout primary and secondary education, English, French, or depending on the language the students are learning, is a compulsory subject. But we see day after day that our students, after having studied English for nearly 12 years, don't have a very high competence in the English language. So yesterday, Professor Matthews was talking about nest and non-nest, and he was saying that normally nest, well, the difference is not that we are better or not. So nest know a lot of things about language. But what is really important is that apart from knowing things about the language is how we can use the language. And this as foreign teachers of foreign languages is or should be our main objectives. To show and to teach our students how to communicate. So normally when we open newspapers, I'm going to use newspapers as well, we see this. El 63% de los alumnos españoles no comprenden el inglés al finalizar la ESO. Esto corresponde al estudio europeo. I'm going to be bilingual today, so I'm going to be speaking sometimes in English, sometimes in Spanish. Estudio europeo de competencia lingüística en el 2012. No he traído datos, pero de los 15 países que hicieron la prueba, España quedó en el lugar número 13. Como dicen los franceses, va mal. La escuela no cumple el reto de mejorar el nivel de inglés. Eso dice el especialista, que el certificado B2 no basta para dar clases de otras materias en esa lengua. El inglés es asignatura pendiente de los españoles. Bueno, yo me estoy refiriendo al inglés, pero pasa en casi todas las lenguas. Los españoles, este es el último estudio de EFE que salió en el año 2017, los españoles no mejoran su nivel de inglés y además bajan 3 puntos en un ranking que lidera Países Bajos. Es decir, que no vamos para arriba, sino que vamos para abajo. Bueno. Pero, then we go back to all things and we say this. Los alumnos de la ESO bilingüe acaban con mejores resultados y nivel de inglés B1. La educación bilingüe empieza a dar sus frutos en España. Los alumnos de centros bilingües mejoran resultados también en otras materias. A ese señor lo conocéis, ¿no? Lo habéis visto por aquí. Los alumnos de colegios bilingües sobrepasan la media en resultados. Y a esta señora la podéis ver por aquí también. Un estudio pionero demuestra los efectos positivos de la enseñanza bilingüe. So, If our students, after studying English or French or whatever for about 12 years, don't get a standard linguistic competence, and CLIL has showed all the benefits and has proven to be really beneficial, not only to improve the communicative competence of the students, why are we going to limit the use of CLIL just for bilingual programs? So that's the question. So that's what we've got at the moment. So CLIL is going up, and foreign languages are, well, not falling down, but not as good as they should be. So what I'm going to propose you here is how we can bridge the gap between those students studying in bilingual programs and those students who are not in those bilingual programs, and they have to go and study a language. I don't speak as quick as you do, but anyway. So, I'm not going to explain what CLIL is, because you already know what it is. You are experts. But we know that the basic principles of CLIL are content, communication, cognition, and culture, and they all work as a perfect gear. They are interrelated, and that is going to give very good results. But you're going to tell me, of course, content, but I don't teach geography, I don't teach history, I don't teach science. Okay, we'll see what content you can teach later on. Cognition, well, how am I going to develop cognition in my students? Communication, how am I going to do it? Do you remember when you were at school sometimes, and on Friday afternoon the teacher used to say, okay, for next Monday you're going to write a composition about whatever. Weekend, Sunday evening, in front of a piece of paper. I have to write about this, but I don't know how to do it. Do you remember? Many times. So, we're going to see what are the main differences between CLIL and English as a foreign language or foreign languages in general. Bien, CLIL is content-based. ELT is language-based. So in CLIL, the main objective is to have competence in the 4 Cs. Well, in EL2 is to be proficient in the EL2, the second language. Something which is very important, there is no structural grading. How many times have you studied present tense, present continuous, past tense, present perfect, passive voice? And then you ask your students, okay, give me an example of the passive voice. No, you have to make it using the verb to be plus. So they were talking about the language, but not the language. Not grading, that means that in CLIL, depending on the content, depending on what you're going to teach, you will use the language you need in order to teach that content. So it's not grading. So I don't have to be thinking about, now, do I have to teach the present tense? No, if I'm teaching history, I will have to talk about the past. And if I'm teaching about how something is changing on mathematics, I will have to teach the present. 2 and 2. What triangle has 2 different sides. Well, topic knowledge is the main priority or aim of the lesson, and in ELT, the language is the main priority of the lesson. Then, CLIL is calc-oriented, and ELT is PICS-oriented, so sometimes we talk about survival English. So I can't survive. So when calc's more academic. Do you know what calc and PICS means? So PICS has nothing to do with la bolígrafos y utilizamos. Do you know? Can anybody tell me what PICS mean? Basic interpersonal communication. Right. More things. CLIL, meaningful exposure to the target language. So remember that whatever we teach, it needs to have a purpose. Insufficient exposure to the target language. How many of you have received English lesson in which the teacher was speaking in English all the time? Hands up. Hands up. Not many hands up. So not enough exposure to the target language. So we have to be exposed to the target language, but what is really important is that that exposure is meaningful. So if we don't understand what somebody is telling us, we won't learn anything. Opportunities to practice what they learn. Why do they learn it? So they learn by doing. So they are putting into practice all the things they are learning in that very moment. They are not learning now and say, okay, we'll use it perhaps in the future. Using the language to learn and learning to use the language. And as I was saying before, students talk about the language but not the language. And that's something we see every single day. I see it at the university. Activities and materials content-based, scaffolded and cognitively demanding. And normally activities, materials focus on grammar and vocabulary practice. So think about the books we're using. Marisa was saying that normally they are obsolete, so the same books doing the same things over and over again. And so that's a bit boring for everybody. Now, one of the main important things about CLIL is that there is interaction. So there is interaction between the teacher with the students with the resources, and the students' interaction with peers. Because the kind of things, the kind of activities they're going to do are completely different. Interaction is, paramount. What else? So students receive a lot of help, tips, assistance, guidance, support, advice. So remember that sometimes if they don't help us do something, they won't be able to do it. So that's what we have to provide our students with. How to? That's the big question. How am I going to do it? So for many years we've been very worried about what, and we have forgotten the how. But we must remember that what and how are like a tandem, and they cannot be separated. And it's very important to know how I'm going to do it. Well, going to the gym, training. So Marisa has also talked about that. Training. Training not in the linguistic competence teachers already have, but on the methodological competence. So how am I going to do this? So I'm going to show you some examples of, well, I published a book last December in which what I'm really convinced that it can be used to teach anything you want, not just foreign languages. So it's a different way of seeing things, it's a different way of teaching. Or, well, it's not exactly teaching, so students will learn in a different way. So, we were talking about content. You say, well, I'm not teaching geography, I'm not teaching history. The content could be any content, any topic, which is cognitively demanding for the students, interesting, and appropriate for the level, according to Genesis. So as you can see, it's from the last century, 1984. For example, let's see an example. For example, I have decided to take a topic which is a fable. Why? Because I can connect it with a lot of nowadays issues and topics. So do you know any fables? Yes. So what is the first thing I'm going to do? Imagine I'm going to teach you a lesson, right? And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to activate your prior knowledge. I'm going to see how much do you know about fables. Do you know a lot about fables? For example, would you be able to match these animals? So, yes? For example, the lion and the mouse, very good. The turtle. The turtle and? The turtle and the rabbit. Okay. The ant. Sorry. The ant and the grasshopper and the crow. So you are experts in fox, yes. And I would start, so in order to develop cognition, I would start because what I want my students to do is recognize what are the main features of fables, because at the end they will have to write them. And for example, asking questions like, what do you think these animals represent? Do you know any fables? Think about an adjective to describe each animal. And that's something I'm doing with my whole class. So we are interacting with each other. For example, scaffolding. So it's not just that. So here you've got a text, and now have a look at the main characteristics of fables. So I'm going to show them, I'm going to be a model for them, and we're going to do this together. And after that, they will be able to do many things on their own. And after asking the questions, they will, for example, that there is personification. And where is it? So tortoise and hare are written with capital letters, so they are They've got personal traits, powerful verbs, characters are given human traits, for example, the arrogant hare, the slyest fox, etc. And then they are going to teach us a lesson. So there are different activities in which they will be able to be doing with the teacher's help. Exactly the same, so here we've got a lot of questions. What is peculiar about telling the story short or long? So I mean, I'm not telling the students everything about it. I mean, this is just an example, but I'm asking questions, and from those questions they will be able to think about all the characteristics I want them to know. Exactly the same here. For example, what it is really important is to connect the story or whatever you're doing with the students' own experiences, because they will be much more interested in what they're doing. For example, what do you think about bullying? In which fable is one of the characters bullied? In one? The hare and the tortoise? Have you ever been bullied? Why is it important to persevere? What have you done in such a situation? But I'm going to help my students talk. And for that, for example, I'm going to use some substitution tables in which I will make them to practice something before they really do it. For example, if I want them to compare, I'm going to provide them with these structures so they will be able to make sentences. In both fables, the grasshopper is very irresponsible. And after practicing, they will be able to carry out the different activities. Exactly the same here. So if we want to compare La Fontaine's fable and Aesop's, you've got exactly the same thing. La Fontaine fables takes place in winter, however, on the contrary, unlike wine and so on, they will be using different connectives to contrast things. Or another one here, agreeing and disagreeing with opinion, exactly the same. So remember that it's very important to provide students with the help they need in order to develop communication. It's not just saying, okay, we are going to agree, disagree. You talk with your peer, perhaps they don't know how to do it. Especially taking into account that sometimes we are doing this at the primary level. So providing them with support is very important. For example, then they have to plan and draft for a fable, and you are providing them with all the steps, because that's something our Spanish students don't know how to do. They don't know how to organize the writing. So if you provide them with all the steps they have to follow, so the next time we'll be writing the fable. Introduce the characters, problem that says the events, sequence of events, resolution, and then the moral. So, and then as for culture, there are social values and cultural values like perseverance, solidarity, bullying, so there are many things you can connect. You can teach grammar as well, but I didn't have time to explain everything. So, the best thing is to think about this. So we know how to do it now. And as teachers, we have to take a step forward. And we have to foster bilingual education. We know that bilingual education is improving the competence, the linguistic competence of our students, but we should not forget all those students who are not in bilingual programs and whose English is not as it should be. So, if I want to do it, and we know how we can do it, you try, I can do it, and you will do it. So, I just invite you to try and think about this and implement or try to do something like this when you're teaching a foreign language in your schools. So that's it. So here you've got it. I mean, what it is really, really important for me about this book is not only the beginning, but the lesson plan you've got at the end, which is long, and there are a lot of activities you can do and you can adapt for your students. Thank you very much for being here, and we will see here as well.
Okay, thank you very much for your brilliant presentations. As I told you at the beginning, we've got some time for questions and comments. No questions? No time? Okay. Thank you very much for coming here.